My log has something to tell you.
Tonight, we're exploring the great, unknown, known, unreported, most historical UFO invasion of the late 19th century in America and around the world. The attack of the steampunk-esque UFOs. Back when UFOs would show up and they would have gears and doodads and steam blowing off of them, and the UFO knots would be very human-like and say strange things to us, like, I come from a land with, well, I forget, but we'll find out very soon. So let's just get there. Let's get to the most exciting part of it all, the reading. Tonight, we are diving into two of my favorites, Dimensions, a casebook of alien contact, which I'm reading live right now on the Saturday Morning Book Club, and then Unexplained, ! By Jerome Clark. Both chronicle this little-known spat or flap of UFOs that happened in the late 19th century. And I like to cover it because they're real funky looking steampunk-like UFOs. Because that's interesting, because now we see little tic-tac-like UFOs. We see more like modern UFOs that we would, when we're thinking about UFOs, us people in 2025, we think about little gray aliens, you know, these ships that kind of phase in and out of reality, move real fast, like the tic-tac video that I was talking about, lights in the sky. But if you're talking to someone from the late 19th century and you ask them about a UFO and the UFO knots, they would be like, oh, you mean those big flying steamships in the air? So let's just dive on into our first encounter. In California, November 1896, hundreds of residents of the San Francisco area saw a large, elongated, dark object that carried brilliant searchlights and was capable of flying against the wind between January and March 1897. It vanished entirely, and suddenly, a staggering number of observations of an identical object were made in the Midwest. In March, an object of strange appearance was seen by Robert Hibbard, a farmer living 15 miles south of Sioux City, Iowa. Hibbard not only saw the airship, but an anchor hanging from a rope attached to the mysterious craft caught in his clothes and dragged him several dozen feet until he fell back to Earth. Ooh, another anchor. Who do we know this? Or what do we know this from? Frank and Kathy's sighting. When they met the strange man at the diner, they saw a UFO that also dropped an anchor. But their UFO was more of a ball of light and wasn't like a craft with searchlights. A side note about what's going to be different about these sightings from other sightings we've read about in the past. In the late 19th century, all these unidentified objects in the sky were really slow. They hovered for hours and hours. Crowds of hundreds of people gathered to see these things, like the one we just read about in old San Francisco. During that time, there were no crazy-ass jets to pursue them. So they just kind of lingered and got to do whatever the heck they wanted because we couldn't shoot them down as easily. Now, and our UFO sightings are now more modern, we see the UFOs zip around like, and as soon as our military shows up, they poof and they're out of there, right? So this is interesting. Back then, when we didn't have those capabilities, the UFOs just kind of lingered, and they were more machine-like. It reminds me of Wild Wild West, like if the bad guy from Wild Wild West was driving them around. Now let's go to a sighting in 1897 by Captain James Hooton, who was described by the Arkansas Gazette as the well-known Iron Mountain Railroad conductor. I had gone down to Texarkana to bring back a special, and knowing that I would have some 8 to 10 hours to spend in Texarkana, I went to Hammond, Arkansas, to do a little hunting. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I reached that place. The spot was good, and before I knew it, it was after 6 o'clock when I started to make my way back toward the railroad station. As I was tramping through the bush, my attention was attracted by a familiar sound. a sound that for all the world was like the working of an air pump on a locomotive. I went at once in the direction of the sound, and there in the open space, some 5 or 6 acres, I saw an object making the noise. To say that I was astonished would but feebly express my feelings. I decided at once that this was the famous airship seen by so many people about the country. There was a medium-sized looking man aboard, and I noticed that he was wearing smoked glasses. Sounds cool. He was tinkering around what seemed to be the back end of the ship, and as I approached, I was too dumbfounded to speak. He looked at me in surprise and said, "Good day, sir, good day." I asked, "Is this an airship?" And he replied, "Why, yes, sir." Whereupon 3 or 4 other men came out of what was apparently the keel of the ship. A close examination showed that the keel was divided into 2 parts, terminating in the front like a sharp edge of a knife, while the sides of the ship bulged gradually toward the middle and then receded. There were 3 large wheels upon each side, made of some bending metal and arranged so that they became concave as they moved forward. "I beg your pardon, sir," I said. "The noise sounds a great deal like a Westinghouse air brake." "Perhaps it does, my friend. We are using condensed air in aeroplanes. But you will know more on that later." "Already, sir," someone called out. It sounds like such a wholesome alien encounter, like, "Ding, ding, all aboard, sir. The ship is ready to set sail." Someone called out. When the party all disappeared below, I observed that just in front of each wheel, a 2-inch tube began to spurt air on the wheels, and they commenced revolving. The ship gradually arose with a hissing sound. The aeroplanes suddenly sprang forward, turning their sharp ends skyward. Then the rudders at the end of the ship began to veer to one side, and the wheel revolved so fast that one could scarcely see the blades. In less time than it takes to tell you, the ship had gone out of sight. There you go. That's one heck of a steampunk machine. All sorts of beeps and bobs, whirring and purring. Notice how there's no modern sounds in that. Only sounds that they associate with at the time was a modern marvel, the steam engine. So everything they see is powered by steam. Next up, we have more straight up testimony, again from 1897, this time from Constable Sumter and Deputy Sheriff McClemore of Hot Springs, Arkansas. While riding northwest from this city on the night of May 6, 1897, we noticed a brilliant light high in the heavens. Suddenly it disappeared, and we said nothing about it, as we were looking for parties and did not want to make any noise. After riding 4 or 5 miles through the hills, when they say looking for parties, that means they're out there looking to probably getting a bounty on someone, hunting down someone they needed to arrest. We again saw the light, which now appeared to be much nearer to the earth. We stopped our horses and watched it coming down until all at once it disappeared behind another hill. We rode on for about half a mile when our horses refused to go further. About 100 yards distant, we saw 2 persons moving around with lights. Drawing our Winchesters, for we were now thoroughly aroused to the importance of the situation, we demanded, "Who is that? And what are you doing?" A man with a long, dark beard came forth with a lantern in his hand, and on being informed who we were, proceeded to tell us that he and the others, a young man and a woman, were traveling through the country in an airship. We could plainly distinguish the outlines of the vessel, which was a cigar-shaped and about 60 feet long, and looking just like the cuts that have appeared in the papers recently. It was dark and raining, and the young man was filling a big sack with water about 30 yards away, and the woman was particular to keep back in the dark. She was holding an umbrella over her head. The man with the whiskers invited us to take a ride, saying that he could take us where it was not raining. We told him we believed we preferred to get wet. No, thank you kindly, sir. I believe we prefer to get wet. Asking the man why the brilliant light was turned on and off so much, he replied that the light was so powerful that it consumed a great deal of his motive power. He said that he would like to stop off in Hot Springs for a few days and take the hot baths, but his time was limited and he could not. He said that they were going to wind up in Nashville after thoroughly seeing the country. Being in a hurry, we left, and upon our return, about 40 minutes later, nothing was to be seen. We did not hear or see the airship when it departed. Then, in the Chicago Chronicle, again, 1897, April 13th, there appeared the following headline: Airship seen in Iowa. Fontenelle, Iowa, April 12th. The airship was seen here at 8:30 tonight. It was viewed by the whole population. It came from the southeast and was not over 200 feet above the treetops and moved very slowly, not to exceed 10 miles an hour. The machine could be plainly seen and is described as being 60 feet in length, and the vibration of the wings could be plainly seen. It carried the usual colored lights, and the workings of the machinery could be heard, as also could the strain of music, as from an orchestra. It was hailed but passed on to the north, seeming to increase in speed and then disappeared. There is no doubt in Fontenelle that it was a real thing. And finally, we go to Texas, April 26th, again in 1897. Some parties returning from church last night noticed a heavy object dragging along with a rope attached. Again, the rope thing, the UFO dragging a rope. And the one dude in the beginning of the story got dragged like 1,000 feet. They followed it until, in crossing the railroad, it caught on a rail. On looking up, they saw what they supposed was the airship. It was not near enough to get an idea of the dimensions. A light could be seen protruding from several windows. One bright light in front like a headlight of a locomotive. After some 10 minutes, a man was seen descending the rope. He came near enough to be plainly seen. He wore a light blue sailor suit and was small in size. He stopped when he discovered the parties at the anchor and cut the rope below him and sailed off in the northeast direction. The anchor is now on exhibition at the blacksmith shop in Elliott Miller. Is that still there? And is attracting the attention of hundreds of people. Ooh, interesting. So there we have it. Now, we know from Dimensions that Dimensions is just a sampling of Dr. Jacques Vallee's myriad of sighting reports that he knows about. And we know that only 1 in 10 cases even gets reported. So we read what? 5 cases in there? There's at least 50 cases that happened, at least in the same area. But Jacques Vallee has hundreds of these cases from the 19th century. So times that by 10, thousands, baby. I'm talking bling, 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 bling. So from there, we're going to go to some more tales about the late 19th century's UFO invasion from Unexplained by Jerome Clark. Now, Jerome Clark's another hero of the weird. He writes a lot of really good encyclopedias, and he's there at the forefront of the good fight for cryptozoology. So we love him here on Monsters After Midnight. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, what the heck? These things just happened in America? Maybe it was just some wild inventor in a dirigible, or who knows? Well, it wasn't just America. It was global, like all these things always. They're international, and they have a history in each country, and they appear different to the different cultures. But anywho, an outbreak of airship reports occurred along the border of Germany and Russian Poland in early 1892. As would be the case with later airship scares, the Germans thought to have developed advanced aircraft that could fly against the wind, unlike balloons, and hover for extended periods of time. No such aircraft existed at the time, nor had any been developed, despite numerous contemporary rumors to the contrary. By 1896, the Great American Airship Scare erupted in California. And in Dimensions, we mainly focus on the 1897 spat, so now let's go back a year. Even more dirigibles. Beginning in mid-November 1896, numerous witnesses in both urban and rural portions of the state reported seeing fast-moving, and this is California, fast-moving or stationary nocturnal lights assumed to be connected to airships. Daylight sightings typically were of a device that somewhat resembled a balloon traveling end on and with what appeared to be wings both before and behind the bottom light. As the San Francisco Call of November 22nd put it, or of a great black cigar with a fish-like tail at least 100 feet long, with a surface that looked as if it was made of aluminum. As the Oakland Tribune on December 1st had it, in some cases, observers reported seeing propellers. Now, Let's walk with the idea of these being a mysterious invention from unknown inventors. Enter the mysterious dentist. All the while, much press attention was paid to the claims of San Francisco attorney George D. Collins, who swore on his word of honor, though he later denied it, that he not only represented the airship inventor, but had seen the marvelous invention himself. The inventor was rumored to be one E.H. Benjamin, a dentist and Maine native who was known to be a habitual tinkerer. Benjamin told a call reporter that his inventions have to do with dentistry, but harassed by those who suspected he was not telling the entire truth, he went into hiding. Reporters who broke into his office found nothing but copper dental fillings. Well, you guys think he's going to leave his flying machines around? It's interesting he disappeared. Where'd he go? Now, not long after that final sighting in November 1896, the Oakland Tribune was talking about, the California airship flap dissipated, went away, only to reappear again in February 1897, but in Nebraska, where newspapers reported that people saw craft moving at a remarkable speed. On February 4th, witnesses at Envale got a close-up view of the object to which the lights were attached. It was cone-shaped, 30 to 40 feet long, and had two sets of wings on a side with a large fan-shaped rudder, the Omaha Daily Bee, February 6th, reported. Over the following weeks, a wave of sightings struck Nebraska and then neighboring Kansas. By early April, airships were moving east, north, and south. And all that month's newspapers' columns were full of sightings, rumors, and tall tales. And of course, a few hoaxes as well. So couple that all together, we don't know what the fart is going on. We have people doing hoaxes. We have people actually seeing stuff. Just like now. So this phenomenon moved into the early 20th century as well. By the end of May in 1897, the whole craze kind of ran its course. No one was really seeing these ships anymore. But however, enter in the summer, 3 years later, 1900, two young Reedsburg, Wisconsin men saw an enormous dirigible-shaped structure hovering in the night sky. As it passed over a grove of trees, the trees bent, very common theme in all these sightings we read about, as if blown by a strong wind, though the night was still. The March 1915-1901 issue of New Mexico's Silver City Enterprise even reported that a local physician had taken a clear photograph of an airship. Unfortunately, the photograph has not survived. As what happens to these photographs, right? Bummer, man. In 1909, a worldwide wave of airship sightings occurred in Great Britain, the United States, New Zealand, and Australia. In Britain, the sightings, which began in March, were mostly of torpedo-shaped vessels moving at tremendous pace, and of flashing lights and searchlights. They revived fears first expressed 15 years earlier in Eastern Europe and still unfounded of high-flying German spies. American secret inventors were the suspects, with most of the speculation directed towards a Worcester, Massachusetts man named Wallace E. Tillinghast. Even though there was no real reason then or now to link him with the objects, New Englanders and others were reporting. The New Zealand wave began in July at the southern end of South Island, then moved northward. As with other airship scares, some witnesses claimed to have seen human-like figures in the passing craft. In one instance, said to have taken place August 3rd, a Waipaw man said an airship occupant had shouted at him in an unknown language, and in another, quote-unquote, missiles were fired from the airship and hit the water. The witness, a man in a boat, thought he was being attacked. Australia experienced a handful of sightings in August that year as well. Another airship wave erupted in the fall of 1912, and reports were made all across Europe. The objects were typically described as a large cigar shape with brilliant searchlights. Few, if any, reports mention wings. As before, the airships reportedly were capable of hovering and moving at great speeds, even against the wind. The wave had run its course by April. But the sightings continued periodically in Europe and elsewhere. On October 10th, 1914, for example, a Manchester, England man said he saw an absolutely black spindle-shaped object cross the face of the sun. In the United States, dock workers on Lake Superior observed what one called a big machine, 50 feet wide and 100 feet long. It passed rapidly overhead at 4:30 a.m. on February 29, 1916. It had 3 lights, one on each end and one in the middle, and carried a long rope or cable trailing below it with a large object or block attached to it. Again, with the fucking anchor and block thing. Inside it, 3 men were visible. The sighting took place in the midst of a small UFO wave occurring in Minnesota and Wisconsin. A cigar-shaped object, at least 100 feet long, flew over Richfield, Waco, Texas one evening in early 1918, leaving witnesses with, in the words of one, the weirdest feeling of our lives. In the summer of 1927, an airship that one observer compared to a perfectly shaped huge fish with big fins extended outward near the front and small short ones near the rear was seen over Wolfe County, Kentucky. On October 9th, 1946, and then all the way in 1946, observers in San Diego, California, saw an airship-like object that they compared to a huge bat with wings. A similar object was seen over Havana, Cuba, the following February. A Pittsburgh, Kansas radio musician driving to work at 5:50 a.m. on August 25th, 1952, said he came upon a 75-foot-long object with windows through which the head and shoulders of a human figure were visible. Along the UFO's outer edges, according to the investigators from the Air Force's Project Blue Book, were a series of propellers about 6 inches to 8 inches in diameter, spaced closely together. Driving between Deming and Las Cruces, New Mexico, on the morning of February 6, 1967, Ruth Ford sighted 2 fast-moving cigar-shaped craft, each with 2 small propellers on it and a row of windows. Can you see like the evolution we're going through from 1897 when there's all these beeps and bobs to slowly what people are seeing or what's manifesting in front of them, the staged paranormal event that they're experiencing that we learned about in Dimensions this morning? It's evolving. Now in the 60s, it's a smooth cigar-shaped thing. It's still got propellers on the end, but it's more smooth. There's no like fish-like wings. She could see no one inside. In September 1994, a Taos, New Mexico man who had gone outside to lock his cars for the night spotted a huge blimp-like object with a belly like a fish when they are pregnant. So does he leave his doors locked all day? It's nighttime, time to lock my doors. And a tail. It had a 13 or 14 lights underneath it and was flying slowly from east to west. It entered a cloud, which then lit up. It was like nothing I've ever seen, he said. It was right on top of me, maybe 400 or 500 feet up there. It made a noise, but it didn't make a noise of any other aircraft I've heard. It was like a rush of wind more than anything else. And that's one thing that was described in the late 19th century sightings as well, a rush of wind, or more of like a like the Westinghouse brakes, the one dude described. And that was the great UFO invasion of the 19th century that happened around the world. We read maybe 20 or 30 sightings tonight. Times that by 10, that means at least 200. Knowing that both these dudes, Jerome Clark and Jacques Vallee, only included the best sightings, they probably have hundreds more. That means there's thousands of these sightings that happened at that time. So either it's a massive hoax, shared dream, hallucination deep from our subconscious that manifests itself to everybody, and also physically with the lights that are seen by multiple witnesses, or it's like some sort of extraterrestrial coming to visit, thousands of extraterrestrials coming to visit all the time, and their craft are evolving through the years as we evolve through the years. Or it's possibly something that's like so weird we don't even know yet, like part of some strange paranormal cycle that is staged for us and here to help us open our minds or some shit like that. Who knows? I don't know. But that's all I got for you. That's Monsters After Midnight and the great 19th century UFO dirigible steampunk invasion. Thanks for joining me. Let's get out of here. Ta-ta.